Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the legal and government correspondent, and I'm on this Zoom interview from my law office in Hudson, Wisconsin, the Lohman Abdul Law Firm. My guest today is candidate for the Senate seat, 10th District. Isn't that right, Rob?
That is, yep.
Okay, and it's Rob Stafsholt. Now, did I pronounce that correct?
You did fine, yep. Staff like the staff of people and Schult.
Okay. Very good. So Rob, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your family and your background?
Sure, yeah. I'm Rob Stafsholt. I kind of grew up south of New Richmond, out in Erin Prairie Township. I still live there. Kind of told everybody when I was younger I wanted to move up north, and I was going to move north, and I've made it one whole mile in life so far. I live a mile north of where I grew up. I actually live on our family farm now. I grew up on a farm, cash crop, corn and soybeans with my dad. And we still farm together today, although I also do some things off the farm, own a small business, and have done quite a few things off the farm. So, but that's been the one constant thing I've always kept doing. Have a 17-year-old daughter here and goes into Richmond High School and a public school system there. And hopefully they open that back up. But yeah, I've been involved in a lot of things. Small business-wise, Chamber of Commerce. I'm an avid hunter, fisherman, and trapper, so I do a lot of outdoor stuff. In fact, in the State Assembly, I've done 2 terms, and now this last term, I've been the chairman of the Sporting Heritage Committee. So kind of born and raised around New Richmond. My parents and grandparents are all from Glenwood City and Downing, Emerald, down in that country. So it's a good place to call home.
All right. So thanks for hitting that background. Now, as far as qualifications, you mentioned your term in the Assembly. Now, that was the 29th Assembly District, is that right?
Yeah, I'm currently the state representative for the 29th Assembly District in my second term. So I ran for office in 2016, won the election late in 2016, and took office early January of 2017. Got reelected in 18, and now am serving that term in 19 and 20.
All right, and help me out. Who was in the Assembly in that seat before you?
So prior to me, John Murtha held that seat for about 10 years. And right before John, Andy Lamb from Menominee had the seat for, I think, 1 term.
All right. And the districts have changed quite a bit over the years, but now the 10th judicial, or not, I keep saying judicial district because that's a lingo from my job, sorry, occupational hazard. The 10th Senate district is comprised of the 28th, 29th, and 30th Assembly districts. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, so it covers my current Assembly district plus Representative Zimmerman, who does basically Roberts, Hudson, North Hudson, and River Falls. And then Gabe Magnifici is the state rep to the north of us, and she covers most all of Polk County and a big chunk of Burnett County. So the Senate district encompasses all 3 of those. Okay.
And so this Senate seat has been held by previously by Sheila Harsdorf.
Yep. Yeah, Sheila had this seat for, I believe it was 17 years. Long-standing tradition of having a conservative leader and Sheila Harsdorf there. And then at the time, Governor Walker was the governor, asked Sheila to be a part of his cabinet and actually be the secretary of DATCAP and take over the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And so she left midterm to fill that role in the governor's cabinet. And so it opened up a special election for us. So there was a primary in December, and then the general election was in January of 2018, and the seat flipped over to our current Senator, Patty Shockner.
Okay. And so you have been working with Patty Shockner for a little over the last year then, or almost 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
2 years. And now you're vying for the opportunity to run against her, is that right?
That's true, yep. I've filed a declaration of non-candidacy for my Assembly district, which means I'm not running. I have to give up my seat. So, sometimes you hear about in politics, people get a free swing. The special election was actually one of those things where if you were to run in a special election and you lose, you get to keep your seat. But in this particular stance, you can't keep your Assembly seat and run for the Senate at the same time. So I filed the non-declaration. We've got some people that are vying to take over that seat, and I'm going on full steam ahead to run for the 10th Senate District.
All right. And as far as I know, there's no primary on the Democratic side.
That's correct.
Just Senator Shockner. And then you have an opponent, and it's Cherie Link. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. So, when did you consider running for this Senate seat then?
You know, you think about a lot of things, but I've thought about it for a while, but I got serious. I've got a unique perspective, I think. I got to see what it looked like being a conservative representative working with a conservative senator. And the most critical part about that really is the most specific things to our district, the most critical that are very district specific things. It used to be if there was an issue in Emerald, Wisconsin that was in my district, I could pick up the phone, call Sheila and say, hey, Sheila, this is what I think is going on. Here's a possible solution. She'd roll it around, give me probably some improvements to what I had put together, and we'd work on it together. And now trying to do that across partisan lines has been increasingly difficult. And I believe that this district has been a little underserved on the very specific things that are specific to this district. We still do statewide policy. We still do great things. And Senator Schachner and I, try to work together where we can, but there's just a few things that I think on a district specific level that we're being a little underserved, having a divide there. So
do you have examples there of what those issues might be?
And sometimes I think the divide isn't necessarily whether we should or shouldn't work on something. It's the direction on how you get there. Mental health is one of those things that I have been working on since I took office. Patty Schachner has been working on some of those things too, but we disagree on how to get there. So there's something called a Chapter 51 emergency detention. You're probably familiar with that. And the way that we handle that right now in this part of the state in the 10th Senate District is absolutely atrocious. And it's atrocious, number one, for the people that are in that situation, but it's just a budget killer for law enforcement. It breaks county budgets. It's just a really tough thing. And so I think we need to fix it. I put together a pilot program that would help subsidize the loss on hospitals in our area if they tried to take that on and make that part of the services they offer. There was also in the budget, so there's been a lot of things that have been tried with that, but there was also in the budget about $15 million that would go to a facility in Eau Claire, which currently already has a facility, but they're always full. So our patients in St. Croix County oftentimes get handcuffed and put in the back of a squad car, and more times than not, they end up in Winnebago. And they drive right through Eau Claire to get there because they're full. So this $15 million would have increased the beds there and made more capacity. I thought that was a good idea. I had some concerns over it, but I thought that was a good idea. At least we'd get something back up here in north and western Wisconsin. And my reason for that is a lot of those people that are patients at that point, we take them to Winnebago. They're outside their comfort zone. They're outside their circle of resources for family and friends and really their support network. And also when they leave there to do follow-up appointments, they're not with their normal health professional doctors. So it's just easier if we keep them closer, keep them hopefully with someplace they've been before. So we could have put those folks in Eau Claire, which is still 70 miles away from where you are, but it's closer than Winnebago. It's 5 hours. And the atrocity of that is a lot of times because it's a law enforcement action, we take those folks to Winnebago and drop them off. And then a day or two later, we drive all the way back down there with usually 2 officers. We pick them up, put them back in handcuffs, haul them all the way back, for instance, to St. Croix County or Polk County or wherever, for their initial court appearance. And then if the judge deems that they should be there for a while because they are a threat to themselves or others, we take them all the way back down there again. So it's almost 3 trips to get the job done. And then probably as much atrocious as anything else is in the state statute, it doesn't require us to pick them up. So then we leave them there. So it's really a problem, and it's something we've been working on. Patty's had some telehealth and some other avenues, and I think hers are more preventative, and the avenues that I'm working on are more reactive to the current situation. It's just a difference about how you get from point A to point B.
Okay. So let's get into, you mentioned how you saw working with a conservative versus progressive, but why are you running beyond that? What are your reasons for running for the Senate? If you've had your taste of government in the Assembly, why would you run for the Senate?
As a politician, we always have these elevator speeches, and I can certainly recite that to you, but the honest truth is I think about what life will look like for my daughter 20 years from now, or your kids or grandkids or other people's kids. I really think that a lot of the things that we give up, some of our personal freedoms, our rights, things that are, over-regulation through government, a lot of those things are just a little bit at a time. And at the time you think, boy, that's not really, I don't like it, but that's not that big a deal. And I worry about if someone like me doesn't say, no, even though it's just a little deal, we're not going to do it, that we keep adding those things up over time. And if you add up 20 of those a year or more or less, if you keep adding those up over a 20-year span, how does that change the needle overall in a 20-year span? And I really worry about what the future looks like for our kids and grandkids, and that's the reason I run for this job.
Okay. So, you having served in the assembly and been in there 2 terms, is there something that you got accomplished or you contributed to accomplishing that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of my record. I hit the ground running as a freshman. I had spent some time in Madison before just as a private citizen, going to committee hearings and testifying on bills that other legislators had. So I was familiar with the process, if you will. And so I kind of hit the ground running. And of course, when you get elected as a freshman, the first thing they throw you into is the state biennium budget, which is, you're drinking water out of a fire hose at that point. But I navigated my way through that with some good help from some friends and some people I looked up to that had been there for a little longer than I had. And one of the things I did was I thought that some bodies of government were abusing the eminent domain law that we had in the state. Property rights are a very important thing, and people's reliance on the fact that if they own property, they should have the expectation that the government can't just come take it away. Eminent domain is a law that allows the government to seize private property if people aren't willing to sell it. There's a place for that. I mean, there really is. I don't like any of it, but there is a place for that. But what was happening is we were using it for taking private property for other people's recreational opportunities, recreational trails, if you will. So I got that changed in the budget right out of the bat. Another thing I did in the sporting world is I passed a bill, or authored and helped pass a bill that allowed parents and grandparents and guardians to decide at what age their children are ready to start hunting. It's a mentoring bill, so therefore the child has to be within arm's length of the guardian or the mentor who's ever taken them out there. But it allows them to decide at what age their kids are at, because some kids are different at different ages. Some are ready at younger, some are not ready till a little ways longer. So, but it puts the decision back in the parents' realm. I've actually, I believe I've authored 28 bills and passed 15 into law at this point. So I've been pretty active, and we can use up the whole time talking about those, and I'm proud of those bills. But a lot of things: workforce development, apprenticeship, tuition bills for trying to get people back in the trades. I'm proud of that bill. We ran it the first session, didn't make it through. Now this session we ran it again. There's just been a lot of things I've been proud of, in addition to budget items, trying to hold the line on taxes, reduce them where we can, and still provide services to the people. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of my record.
Okay. Well, you're running against another Republican. We'll remind folks that the primary is August 11th. And so what kind of things set you apart from your opponent?
I won't talk bad about my opponent. In fact, I just generally, and it's been my demeanor in all the elections I've been in, I won a primary my first time in 2016, and then now I've won 2 generals, is I talk about the things that I want to do and the things I stand on. So I try not to talk about my opponents if I can. My opponent, Shri, is a nice lady, and she's good in her own way. I feel that I'm more experienced, and I stand on the track record that I have, getting the bills passed and the constituent work that I've done. We just looked this up, and there's been, I think, just shade over 3,000 constituents that I've worked with in the 3.5 years I've been there, along with follow-up. So we count the number of contacts. Now, some of those are the same because you follow back up, but that number is over 5,000. I'm really happy to have helped out over 3,000 people or address concerns. And not everybody leaves happy, but at least we have that conversation. And through my office, we've had over 3,000 people that have had issues that have contacted us. So I have that experience.
Okay. And now everybody's got issues or platforms. You've touched on a few things about smaller government and less regulation and so forth, but do you have some 3 or 4 of those issues that you want to hit on when you talk about your elevator speech, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah. I think normally we talk about smaller government, less taxes, more economy stimulation. But I think this is really a unique year. With COVID, obviously, we're doing a Zoom meeting to make this interview happen. I think it's kind of a different world. And the number one thing that I'm focused on at this point is trying to re-stimulate our economy to get back as close to it as we can, what the economy was before COVID-19. That means doing reopening things or whatever, but the other thing, part of that is doing it in an intelligent way that really makes sure that it's safe for our seniors and our most vulnerable. I think that we need to do it in a planned out and strategic way. That's the number one issue, I think, coming into this. And it affects so many things that, you think about COVID and health-wise, but, the governor came out the other day and said we're close to $2 billion in the rears on our tax collections because of the taxes that haven't gotten paid in because of COVID-19. So we're going to have some pretty serious budget talks. We're going to have to tighten our belt where we can and make tough decisions, and I'm ready to do that.
So what areas, you see some type of budget repair bill then where government's going to have to adjust its spending backwards?
Yeah, I was actually pretty proud to be a part of, we deemed it kind of the COVID bill a few months ago. It's probably the most partisan bill I've been a part of. It's the most bipartisan bill I've been a part of since I've been there. Both sides had things that they would have liked to put in there, but knew the other side that was a line in the sand and it would be a battle. And both sides just decided to get things done for Wisconsinites in that bill. And it truly was a bill that should have likely been 50 different bills. There was about 80 different things in there, or maybe it was 80 pages and 55 different ideas, but we put them all into one. We worked together across the aisle and we got that done. And you're talking about budget repair bills. One of the things that I would have liked to done in there is freeze some of the spending, the automated spending increases, because I think we're going to have to tighten our belt at one point. So to answer your question, I think we're going to have to do a budget repair bill. I'm not sure what that'll look like yet. I think part of that depends on how fast our economy starts coming back now that things are starting to open back up and kids are, possibly getting back to school this fall if they open up the schools. So we'll just kind of have to play it by ear and adjust as we go along.
You mentioned schools and education seems to be one issue that neither party, is willing to ignore because it's important for economic development. So how would you be expanding, educational opportunity in that regard? Do you see a focus on the K-12 or on the post-high school or both or neither?
I think in today's world, we have to look at all of it. I think for a long time, we pushed kids to go to a 4-year school, and some kids, that's the direction they should go. Many kids, that's the direction they should go, and that's a great avenue to go. But I think for a while, we kind of pushed kids past going into the trades, and I think our society and our economy is going to miss not having those people there. So for the last couple of years, I've been focused on trying to make sure that we keep people going into the trades. I think trades are good, solid jobs, family supporting jobs. And I think that it kind of starts in the high school. So I was in Menominee. They have an apprenticeship program down there. I authored the bill for the apprenticeship bill that treated apprenticeship tuition the same as a technical college or a university tuition as far as tax deductions go. But it starts in the high school, and then those apprenticeships turn into technical college type activities or some apprenticeship opportunities. I think talking to high schools, one of the things that I think is really great is we seem to have seen together over the last, I would say 6 to 8 years, probably much better than it used to be. There's like before, high schools were in a silo and tech colleges were in a silo and 4-year institutions were in a silo, and they didn't really merge together well. And one of the things I'm really happy to see, and being on the Colleges and Universities Committee in the State Assembly, we talk about is making sure that the high schools know what the colleges are looking for, the technical colleges know what kind of things the high school kids are going to need to know when they come out. And then we've also advanced technical colleges. You can go to technical college, and if you decide you want to switch to a 4-year, those credits are a lot more transferable than they used to be. And the silos are kind of merged together. And I think that's great because, a lot of people start off with one thing, and when you're 20 years old, you change your mind and figure out life's a little different than you thought, and they go a different direction. It'd be nice to be able to merge some of those together and not have to start over every time they change their mind.
A lot of people run for office. They set kind of finite number of years or terms, that they're going to be in there. Other people, they get in there, they say they're not going to be long-term, and then they're in there long-term. Now, in your case, you're leaving the assembly after only 2 terms. Why?
Because I saw a need for the state senate, and I thought the people of this district were a little underserved the way we had it. And I'm kind of the person that I was in the assembly, proud of the record I had there, and I was comfortable. Honestly, I could probably run for re-election in my seat based on demographics. Pretty likely that I would succeed again, but that wasn't why I went to Madison. I went to Madison to serve the people, and I saw a need in the state senate, so I'm leaving that seat and going to the state senate. How long I'll be there? A pretty wise guy. When I first got elected, I was walking up the diagonal sidewalk in front of the Capitol, and I paused for a minute. I just couldn't believe, and I was honored that the people actually chose me to go down there and represent them, and that I had an office in that building. And every time I walk up those stairs, I'm in awe of that. That's not the honest truth. And I stopped one time, and somebody asked me what I was doing, and I told them, I just can't believe they give me an office in this building. And he said, well, I tell you what. He said, the day that you don't have that awe when you walk up is the day it's time to start thinking about going home. And he's right. If I ever get to the point where my heart's not in it, you're not there for the right reasons anymore, and then it's time to make a change.
Okay, so let's play the what-if game. Let's say that you win this primary, and then you're now in the general. What do you see as your issues of what are you going to tell the voters that you want to get done for them in the 4 years after that general election?
Yeah, I think we need to get the economy back up and going, do it safely. I think that's going to be a longer-term project than people think. It's not just going to be a light switch. I think it's going to take some effort. I think we've seen that already. The court case came down, and the bars and restaurants have been open for a month and a half, 2 months now, and things are still slower than they used to be. And we've got to get that moving, and that kind of drives a lot of other things. So that's first and foremost. After that, I'll continue to protect property rights, personal freedoms, Second Amendment, sporting heritage guy. But I sit on the Banking and Finance Committee. I was a mortgage broker for a time in my life, so I understand credit and how it affects families, and keep working on those issues with the banks and the credit unions. So just continuing to do the same work I've been doing.
Okay. How about any endorsements that you have?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think endorsements are endorsements, but I've got some pretty good ones I'm proud of. I have Governor Scott Walker has endorsed this set campaign. He was up in the district on Monday with me, and we had some events going on Monday. Former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish has endorsed my campaign. She's coming up this coming Monday to do some things with me in the district. A lot of our local officials, Romaine Quinn's a current state representative. He's over in Barron County, but Romaine was the chair of the Rural Wisconsin Initiative, dealt with a lot of things, and I was on that initiative with him. Primarily, my focus on that was broadband expansion, trying to bring it to the district. So Romaine's, happy with the work I did there, and he endorsed me. Current state rep Gay Magnifici up in Polk and Burnett County in the 28th Assembly District has endorsed me. Former state rep Eric Severson, former state rep Mark Pettis, Adam Jarko, all of those folks I have worked with. I'm proud and humbled that they are willing to put their name on the line and say that they think I'm the choice for this district.
All right. I got still a few more minutes. I'm going to circle back to the question I asked before, because again, voters are looking for a difference, and I understand there's a Republican platform, but is there any issues that set you apart from your opponent?
Well, I think, I'm a proven conservative. I've been in office for 4 years. I've got the track record. You can see how I vote on things where, there's an experience level difference there. I've done the job in the state assembly for 2 terms, and I have a record to stand on, not just a here's what I would do if I got elected. I can say this is what I've done, and I'll continue to do it.
Okay, so during those 4 years that you were in the assembly, one of the things that came up there was a representative from both the House and the Senate, and I think it was Luther Olson, I think, but was one of them, and the other name has escaped me. But there was a task force on looking at how to fund our schools and changing maybe that, because as you know, there are some districts heavily reliant on the property tax.
Yep.
I've seen that percentage go up in my time on the school board here in Hudson.
Sure.
We're constantly losing state aid because they see Hudson as a affluent district and
Yep.
can be supported by property tax. Where would you stand on that? And I was a bit disappointed on the outcome of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Didn't seem like any solid recommendations or anybody acting on anything coming out of that.
Jamie, I think you're absolutely right. And I was as frustrated as you were with those lack of recommendations. So I kind of dug into it. I didn't sit on that task force. I sat on 2 other ones last summer, which made for a busy summer. But one of the things that, so I went to talk to some of those folks that were on that task force. And I think as complicated and ineffective as that process is for some school districts, you know, there's just and you know, there's a ton of different components that go into school funding, trying to figure out how to make all that work. And at the end of the day, everybody pretty much agreed that maybe the current funding mechanisms that we have aren't exactly perfect, but nobody found one that was better than that one as a whole. Now that it's different, there would be different systems that were better for smaller schools. Some are better for bigger schools. You know, you look at Drummond up north in northern Wisconsin, they've got a huge tax base there with Lake Owen and some of the homes around there, so they do well. It's just, there's so many components that unfortunately, I think it's something we need to keep working on and keep studying and try to figure out, rather than doing my thought was, rather than doing one big clean sweep and fixing it all at once, is maybe we should do a little bit here and a little bit there and hopefully progressively get our way to something a little better than where we are now. It's just one of those things where it's not a perfect system, but nobody really came up with one that was obviously better than what we have.
I think we have about another minute here. And, you know, the subject of roads, our state roads, are clearly not in the condition they were 10 years ago.
Yep.
And so how do we improve that? I mean, a lot of people blame the economical cars. There's fewer people needing, you know, less gas being consumed and so forth. So how are we going to be able to get our roads funded, financed?
Yeah, you know, in my first term, I brought DOT Secretary Dave Ross up to the district here to tour it with me and talk to me about specifically this district, because, you know, as a statewide, I'm concerned about that, but my first responsibility is my constituents in my district. And so we came up and we talked about things, and what I found out was there's quite a few mega projects in the southeast part of the state that just suck up millions and billions of dollars of our DOT funding dollars. I think it was a mistake to start as many of those at one time as we did. Some of them went longer, cost more, they were out of budget. I mean, all kinds of problems, but in general, I will tell you that northwestern Wisconsin, we fight like heck to try to get our fair share out of the southeast corner. My colleagues and I all do that. I was surprised how hard it was when I first went in there as a freshman to get our fair share back up here. I think, you know, if you think about it just demographically, the southeast part of the state is where the higher populations are. So if you spend $10 million on a road project down there, you appease a lot more voters and constituents and probably elected officials than if you spend the same amount of money on the same geographic area in Burnett County. There's going to be a lot less happy people for the same price. So what I found is we really have to fight hard to get our fair share back up here. And that's one of the things that I'd like to make sure we do. And that's not just on roads, that's on broadband funding and several other things. We just need to fight hard to get our fair share up here, and roads are certainly at the top of the list. You know, in the last budget, we had some road funding put in there, and our governor redirected that somewhere else, so we lost some of our rural road funding for townships and stuff up here, and I think that was unfortunate. We got to try to get that back.
Just always remember Exit 2 here in Hudson, Wisconsin, you know, needs to get moved up on the priority list.
Right.
All right. So anyway, any final words that you want to pass on that things that we didn't touch on?
No, I think we're good. It's my first time on here. I appreciate you having on and having a voice so we can talk about some of the issues, and hopefully I'll be back on again.
Well, look forward to that. Thank you for your time. Good luck in the election. And I want to thank our voters for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal and remind you, please get out there and vote on August 11th. Thank you for watching. I'm Jamie Johnson.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.